Good morning, everybody, and welcome to
Hey.
Facebook Live, to YouTube, and to Twitch. I hope you monsters are excited. It's another fantastic Friday with Rico and I, and a guest who has called us from halfway across the world to hang out, and I couldn't be more excited, honestly.
And Carla, he's from the future. He is hours ahead of us. Just
I know,
kidding.
it's 2 p.m. over there. So, he's
Right?
literally from the future.
From the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we know him for the fat kid inside, but he is actually inspiring us for other things. And this time around, he'll be talking to us about an app that'll teach us how to cook like what he's doing. Ladies and
Oh, thank
gentlemen,
God.
on the show, none other than Erwan Heussaff.
Hey, everyone.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We're
Good.
good. How are you? How has
Good, thank
everything
you.
been?
It's been a special year, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, special is a nice word to describe what 2020 has been so far because I can promise you I can think of about 100 other words to better
Same,
describe
same.
it.
I just
But
I
I
just
mean,
choose to be positive.
yeah, in your life, I guess in general. But it has been a really great year for you. Congratulations, you're a dad. I mean, that is such a blessing with a year as special as 2020, like you would say. I think having a baby is just such a wonderful blessing. Before anything else, how has it been? How has lockdown life in Australia with a baby? How has that been?
It's when you hear it all like that, it's actually really hard to process. It's been, yeah, it's like my whole life was basically completely changed and uprooted, which is quite wild when you think about it. But it didn't feel that way. I think because, and when people ask me, what's the biggest thing that happened in 2020 for me, it's not coronavirus. It's me having a baby. Like that for me was a bigger life change than being in Australia. So that just tells you the kind of focus that you put into that. And I think anyone who has a kid, and I don't know if you guys have kids, but when you experience kind of like the innocence that children have, you want to do absolutely anything to be able to protect and retain that. And so that's why you put your whole heart into it. So it's been really intense. Like I didn't know I could get this intense about another person. So it's been amazing.
I mean, are you, with you and of course, and who's more hands-on to both of you guys? Do you guys do shifts?
Well, literally since I'm working on a dining table right now. Literally since I got here, which was Feb, and then Dahlia was born in March, we've been with Dahlia 24/7. Because we're here with Anne's mom in Anne's mom's house. So Dahlia is basically sleeping with us the whole time. I mean, not sleeping in the bed, but she has a cot next to the bed. So literally, she hasn't left our sight. So in terms of who's more hands-on, I'm working as much as I can, but even when I'm working, I see Dahlia playing over there, and it's a good distraction.
Oh, I'm so happy for you guys, honestly. Like when you started sharing photos and stories of Dahlia, I just, I don't know you, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. We don't know you personally, but when you wish somebody well and you want the best for them, that's the vibe that I get. And that's what I like to project to you and Anne because I feel like you guys deserve it. I mean, you were saying that you got there in Feb, Dahlia was born in March. Boom, lockdown happens. I mean, do you mind sharing with us what was the initial plan? Because I'm sure, yes, you guys wanted to, of course, have Dahlia over there. And then I think your plan was just a few months maybe there, then you would come back. What was the situation like when lockdown started and the borders started closing? Did you and Anne have a sit down? And if you did, what was the conversation like?
Well, I think it's still a very strange time. I mean, we were supposed to go back to the Philippines when Dahlia turned 3 months. So that would have been June. I was supposed to be here from Feb 15 to March 20. So literally 18 days after Dahlia was born. And then I was supposed to do 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks back and forth until Anne and Dahlia moved back to the Philippines. So that was the plan. And then Selene and Nico were supposed to visit in April. And I remember having a conversation with them in end March and was still unsure of what was happening. It's kind of like a zombie movie. You don't want to admit what's happening until there's someone eating your flesh. And so until end of April, end of March, we were still going back and forth. Like, oh yeah, I'll figure out a flight. I'll just delay it for 1 month. And then I think when April hit, and then the whole world started going into chaos, that's when we realized at this point there's no reasoning. There would be no logical reasoning behind trying to plan coming home anytime soon. And we thought, since the cases here weren't rising as aggressively, we thought maybe the lifestyle Dahlia could have here would probably be better. But then Australia followed suit in a sense that we've basically been in lockdown since April here. So basically what you guys would call ECQ. We've been in ECQ since April, and it let down for maybe, I think it was 4 weeks in July, and then we got back into a strict lockdown. So we haven't been able to leave the house during that whole time. Whereas, in the Philippines, people are already allowed to, if they want to go to the beach, they can go to the beach. If you want to go to the province, you can go to the province. Here, it's really like you stay in your city in a 5-kilometer hamster wheel. Yeah, so it's been intense. But like I said in the beginning, when you're fully focused on a human being, that she absolutely takes over your whole life. For me, the last, I don't know, almost 8 months have felt like a week, like a 3-week stint. And I think it's because we're, how you usually measure your year based on the events that happen during a year. And that kind of paces your year. Like, oh, I have a vacation coming up. My friend's getting married. Like, you have these big momentous events that kind of mark the year. And for me, the only big momentous event we've had is Dahlia in March. And from March to now, it's been no big thing, no plans, no vacations, nothing. And so it's really felt like a blink. It's insane.
Yeah.
But the good part about it is you get to spend a lot of time with your baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would have never happened before, for sure.
Yeah, because you'll be busy. I mean, you're busy, Anna's busy, and you guys are, but adapting to it now, how did what are the adjustments that you have made to bring in the work that you do here in the Philippines?
Yeah, because it's a totally different setup, even time zone.
That's been the toughest for me, and I still struggle with that daily. I end up working. I basically haven't had a day off since March.
Wow.
Because I haven't been able to leave the house. And when you're at home the whole time, you can play with Dahlia, but then she goes to sleep at one point also, right? So the only thing I have to do is work. And because my days are so interrupted, and I say this in the best of ways, interrupted in a good way, I end up working 18, 19-hour days just sitting on a dining table in front of my computer. So that is still a little bit of a struggle. It is quite stressful to do that. And I think because I've unlike a lot of other content creators, my content is not about my life. It's not like me just talking to the camera and telling people about what happened in my day. It's my content has always been very focused in terms of, is it functional content in terms of a certain recipe, or is it a travel guide to a certain location, or is it something about a charity I'm working with? So it's always very functional, useful content. And because of that, I've had to build a team around what we do. So I'm still running. We have about 15 people in the Fat Kid Inside company. So all those people are back in the Philippines, and then we have other businesses there with Nico. So the stress, especially in the first part of the year, was really making sure, how do we make sure everyone keeps their jobs, everyone stays active, because we work with very young people, so we want them to stay mentally active and on top of things, so that they still feel creative, especially because most of the people that work for me are creatives. And so those were my primary concerns. And so I'm happy that we've gone through the hardest kind of times intact, which is great. And so in terms of how much of a change, it's been a massive change. So it's been about adapting. We're definitely not shooting the types of projects that we were supposed to and what we love shooting. we've ended up having to make certain concessions in terms of the content that we make. I have to shoot most of the food content here. For our clients back home, we've had to do everything in studio, whereas we're a very documentary-oriented production company when it comes to integrating branded content. So we've made a lot of changes, but the clients understand. I think the environment, everyone currently, even the ones who are used to watching us, kind of understand what's happening. And Nico and I had a conversation early in March, and we're like, you know what? Let's look at 2020 as a year it's okay to take a break, like in terms of your huge plans, and just kind of try to keep things going. And I think if I was in my 20s, that would have freaked me out. But in my 30s now, you know, I can confidently say to everyone who's in their 20s, 1 year is not going to make a huge difference in your life.
Wise words. Okay, wait, before we get back to the content, because that's what we want to talk about as well, Erwan, you know, how you decided to really focus on that kind of content compared to, like, let's say daily vlogging, because you have friends who are very successful in daily vlogging and all of that stuff. But I just want to go back really quickly, because I found it so interesting how you said you haven't had a day off. You've basically been working since you got there. But, you know, with how different 2020 has been, and with you being a new dad, I mean, didn't you and Anne ever at one point say, like, let's just not work for a little bit? Did you have a week or two maybe of just, you know, spending time with Dahlia, not thinking about anything else, not working on the side or when she's napping? Or did it come from you, like, you're just so much of a work kind of guy that I can't stop, bro. Like, I love her and I'm gonna focus on her, but when she's napping, I'm going straight to the computer and working. I mean, didn't you have even just like 1 week where you're just like, because you and Anne are so busy, like in your respective fields, you know? So was this kind of a welcome break in a way?
So Anne for sure had planned to take a maternity leave, and I think she's loved the time off that she's had, which has been great to see, because I started working when I was 18, and mostly as summer jobs and internships and all. And Anne started working, I think, when she was like 13, which is insane. And so for her, it's really good to see her kind of calm down. And that was one of the reasons for her to come here in Australia. It was the only way to get her to stop working would be to get her out of the country.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's how busy she was. On my side, you know, I used to work corporate, when I first started, and back then I could break and stop. But then now, because I run my own companies, the responsibility is really on me. So I think it's hard for me to let go a little bit. I mean, when we don't have big shoots and everything, it is a bit more quiet, but then I still need to be online in case, you know, a building burns or something. And for anyone who's listening that's an entrepreneur, that's the one thing that's always in your mind is the worst case scenario. So you always want to be assured that whatever happens, at least you'll be there to try to figure out if you can fix it. We had a couple, like maybe a month when all of this started, where work just stopped for everyone. When the whole world went into lockdown and the clients stopped and everything just stopped. Then we had to take a mandatory kind of like 3 weeks off. But during those 3 weeks is what I would call, it's not necessarily work as in on your computer. It's not draining, but I call them think weeks. So it's literally time you just spend planning, strategizing, reading about what's happening in the world, and figuring out how to pivot if you're going to pivot.
You know, for those that are listening, of Erwan, he's joining us. He's talking to us about adjustments and adapting during these pandemic times, and how he was able to move everything in Australia. In comes the fat kid inside. All right, so you watch your show. We've seen the growth of it, from making burgers to, you know, the awesome one that I got to see also is when you traveled and you went to Pampanga to seek like the most legit sisig ever. That was a cool documentary. But how did you get started in all that and all the Fat Kid Inside?
So the Fat Kid Inside started. So I right after college, I took a job in Far Eastern Siberia in Russia.
Whoa!
And I was working there for 2 years, and it was intense. Like I ran a big operation back there, and we were like making 3,000 to 5,000 meals a day. So it was pretty hardcore. And just like now, actually, I was working 18-hour days, and then I was younger back then, so I kind of had insomnia. So I would spend my time at night writing articles, like people used to do. And I was writing mostly about food and about my perspective on food and why. And I was talking about my weight loss because back then, all the big diets were coming out and everything. And for me, it was ludicrous and ridiculous that someone would sell you something to tell you how to lose weight. So I just started talking about my weight loss, about my experience and trying to help people out. And I was in Far Eastern Siberia, so I had access to absolutely not much. Like it's winter 6 months a year there. And I remember just being online on Facebook and my friends complaining about not having certain ingredients to make certain dishes and stuff like that. And I was just like, I'm here figuring it out. I'm pretty sure anyone can figure it out wherever they are in the world. So I started making really quick videos of how you could put together food with whatever local ingredients you have. And then it just picked off from there.
I think what's so interesting, Erwan, is that, the way that you branded it without even realizing that you were going to brand it as something like that was also very relatable for so many people. I mean, especially in the Philippines, we love food. I mean, it's the first question that you're asked when you enter someone's home. It's, have you eaten? You should eat. There's no diet in this house. So to be able to, embrace your chubby self when you were younger, and how Rico feels it, and how what I find so interesting and what drew me actually to your content was that you never let that fat kid go. You just embraced him in such a way that I am going to still let him enjoy food, but in like a healthier, happier way, with your recipes and the things that you thought about. And I just think that that's such a great way to talk about food, because sometimes it can be quite, scary, especially on the internet, to talk about food, because it can be a trigger for a lot of people. What were some of the obstacles that you faced when you decided to really pursue Fat Kid Inside? I mean, were there people who were like, bro, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, you're not a licensed nutritionist. Like, oh, it was easy for you to lose the weight. I mean, what were some of the challenges that you can share that you had that, although it was difficult, you still soldiered on?
I think, yeah. Thank you for those kind words, by the way. But the name, The Fat Kid Inside, actually comes. I like that you painted it so positively, but it actually started as something quite negative. For me, The Fat Kid Inside was really. It was I knew it would be. I knew it would be accepted as kind of comical and funny, and people would be like, "Oh, I have a fat kid inside of me" and stuff like that. But when I came up with it, it was actually. It was a way for me to talk about a problem that I had, which was a sense of body dysmorphia. No matter how much weight I lost, and I could be skin and bones at one point, I'd look at myself in the mirror and be like, "Oh, you have hanging skin on your tummy from when you're really obese." And so it was really always there. And that's why I was like, all right, let's just call it The Fat Kid Inside, because that's how I feel. And then, like you said, it wasn't necessarily about embracing it. For me, it was more about accepting it and accepting that people are born different in different circumstances. And so for someone who can eat a carrot cake every day and have an 8-pack at the end of the night, that's fine. But there's some of us who, once we eat something bad, for 2 weeks, we'll be bloated. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it was more accepting that. And that's how I started creating my content. And I think the problem is, and I guess all the challenges that I faced are because of the medium that I chose, which was video and the internet. And back then we didn't see it as much, but now we really do, on how quick, people see one tweet and all of a sudden in their minds decide who you are as a person. Yeah. Based on 100, 40 characters, right? So it's become a time where nowadays a headline or a tweet can define who you are to potentially millions of people, which is really sad. You'd want people to kind of dig further and dig deeper in terms of understanding where you're coming from and be like, oh, this guy comes from a good place. So some of the challenges that I've had are, I remember I did a meal plan for 150 pesos a day. It was because people were complaining about me coming from a good family and being well off. which is something I never pretended I wasn't from. And they were saying, okay, because you have money, it's easier. And then I was like, well, no, because if you would really eat, if you really saw what I ate every day, you'd understand that it's not really about, like, some days for lunch, I'll have roasted squash, like literally just roasted squash or just stir-fried kangkong. Because I eat like an animal. Like when I'm trying to lose fat, I eat like an animal. I just want to feed myself, right? So I'll eat hay if I have to, but I'll eat till I'm full. And so I wanted to prove a point, so I created a meal plan for people that budgeted 150 pesos a day for 2 people, using ingredients that were in the market. And I remember I got flack for 2 reasons there. One, people came at me saying, stop lying, you don't go to the wet market, which if you've seen my videos, I'm in markets all the time. And then the other I got was from nutritionists, mostly fresh graduates, registered dietitians and nutritionists. And I'm not a registered dietitian or nutritionist, but what I do know is that science in general evolves, and what you learn in school gives you the faculty to understand and process information, versus it doesn't give you the right to claim that certain information is correct. You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand and that's why you have good doctors and you have bad doctors. That's why you have good lawyers and bad lawyers. If we thought that every doctor, every lawyer was the smartest person in the room, we'd be in a very difficult position. You know what I mean? And that's why you ask for second opinions. And so with a lot of the challenges I face with nutritionists, it was really explaining to them, like, there are different schools of thought when it comes to nutrition. And unfortunately, the Philippines actually doesn't have massive research funding when it comes to nutrition, whereas the US does. And what you'll find in the US is you'll have one really highly educated PhD nutritionist that's done his own research that says veganism is the best thing in the world. And on the other side, you have one guy saying keto and fat is the way to the healthiest life. And that's what I try to tell people now through my content and through how I write and how I approach things. I always tell people it's very hard nowadays to stand behind a fact and say, this is the truth and the only truth. You always have to read both sides. You always have to try to balance out your opinions, because at the end of the day, it's a spectrum. It's never black or white. It's always in between.
I mean, Erwan, where do you get, like, you have the knowledge. Now you want to bring it into a place that not a lot of people want to stir up that pot. You know what I mean? So where do you get the courage to be like, all right, cool, this is what it is. This is the truth. This is, you know what I mean? So
I just stopped caring. If
It's
people
as
want to
simple
think,
as that.
yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, if I had everything if everything I did had to focus on the potential drawback that I would get, I would end up not doing anything and being too fearful to do anything. As long as I'm careful in terms of how I say things and why I say things, and as long as I know it comes from a balanced point of view, and I'm not claiming to know everything, I think it's fair and people can dissect it if they want. But at the end of the day, if someone were to read everything that I said on a subject, they would realize, oh, this is actually a really balanced view or opinion.
Was there ever a moment na parang, ay, sakit nun, that hurts so much, I want to quit, ayoko na, I'll just...
A lot of times.
Uh-uh.
When was this? I was supposed to do a project so this wasn't about diet or nutrition, but I was supposed to do a project with the TBP back then, which is the Tourism Promotions Board. And they brought me in, this was way, like 6 years ago, not under this administration, I think. And basically they brought me in and I was supposed to be a producer on a series of videos where I was supposed to showcase carinderia owners and showcase their stories and what they've gone through and their present successes. And if anyone has seen any of my content, they'd understand that that's what I do. I've done features on people, on their businesses, whether I'm in the video or not. I love telling people's stories. And some reporter decided to dub me the food ambassador of the Philippines because I was working on this series. And that's something I never even uttered. I've never even called myself a chef.
Yeah.
Yet people online call me a chef. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. And then all of a sudden, everyone thinks I'm calling myself the food ambassador of the Philippines. um, and all of a sudden, a lot of journalists are coming out saying, why is this half French, half Filipino guy who doesn't even speak Tagalog properly, the food ambassador representing the Philippines? Like, and so it was this whole thing online, and it for me was so sad because none of it was my doing, and I just wanted to come in and tell people stories, and charge as a production company would charge, right? And people were like, yeah, but that's taxpayers' money. I'm like, if you looked at the fees, it's any production company would have charged the same thing. And I remember one of my biggest critics was actually a really smart journalist online. I'm not going to name the person. But it was really hurtful what they were saying because they were in the same circle. And so I thought that they would at least before attacking me online, reach out because they would have been able to reach out quite easily. And they came out, all of this really sensationalized bull, online, and people were retweeting it, making fun of it, creating memes. And I remember that for me was very hard. And I was just like, I didn't do anything wrong, yet here I am being painted as a villain. Yeah. And then 2 days later, I contacted that person. I said, hey, this is coming from a really good place, but I'd love to invite you for coffee just so we could have a conversation. And then we ended up talking for like 2 or 3 hours, and it was a really good, pleasant conversation. And I think she left it with a better understanding of what I stand for and what I do. And so that same night, she tweeted an apology saying she had met me and that I was actually not a bad person and that my heart was in the good place and I was trying to do good. The sad part, because it's the internet, because it wasn't sensationalized, it got like 2 retweets versus her negative tweets got literally tens of thousands of retweets. And so when that happened, I really had a conversation with myself with, is the internet the right medium for me where something so insignificant can be taken out of context? And then after that, I remember again having a conversation with Nico, and he says, for all the negative comments that you get, just remember what that represents in terms of the percentage of the overall comments that you get. And it's usually 0.1% of the people are haters. They're usually the loudest, but they're haters. But then that means there's 99.9% of people that support what you do. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just start focusing on the positive. And that's how you push through.
That's brilliant. I'm sorry. That was so good. I wanted him to talk forever on that topic because that's so true. And that's something that a lot of people forget. And I feel so bad when people want to try doing, content creation online, but then they get one little criticism and it just stops the journey for them, And it's so interesting to hear from somebody who, you actually had a point where you were like, is this really something I'm going to pursue? That brings about a lot of comfort as well, Erwan, because you're already in a more established, secure spot, and it's nice for up and coming content creators to hear that you too struggled with that for that split second. So moving from that, pursuing it, comes this incredible YouTube channel that not only is it high production, I mean, the quality is chef's kiss, but the topic and the way, the narrative that you give for each and every episode. I mean, what made you decide to go that route? Because you are an interesting person, Your wife's a very interesting person. Daily vlogging, weekly vlogging, those videos would have been really fun as well. People would have been drawn to your channel if you did something like that, right? What made you decide that I'm not going to do what Will and the other vloggers do? I'm going to focus on this cooking, on this, like culinary tutorial type of series. Why did you go that route?
So before launching into YouTube, I actually did a couple of auditions for TV channels in the Philippines to be a TV cook, basically. And out of all the auditions I had, they were always asking me to be more friendly and smiley and cute. And I remember being really uncomfortable because I was like, I'm not an actor. I'm a terrible actor. But they were like, yeah, but if we get you as a TV cook, then you need to sing and you need to dance and variety shows and
Oh
everything like
my
that.
god.
And for me, that just constricted me because I'm a naturally very reserved person, and it didn't fit my personality. So I was like, all right, this is definitely not for me. If this is the only route, then it's definitely not for me. And so that's why I grew up watching people like Jamie Oliver and Anthony Bourdain and all. And what I loved about Bourdain especially is he kind of just did what he wanted to do. And I wanted that liberty to be able to, if I want to do a cooking video today and do a travel video tomorrow, I can. And I think it just comes down to how I am as a person. And all my friends know this is like, for example, when we travel, I'm the guy that does all the research, that books all the hotels, that does all that, because I enjoy sifting through information and summarizing it. And I thought that was because I used to write quite a lot, and I really enjoy writing, and that's what writing is. It's getting all your ideas and trying to put it on a pretty piece of paper without any mistakes or anything like that. And so I knew that was my skill, and so I started approaching it that way. Like, how can I tackle such big issues or recipes or countries, and then summarize them into 1 or 2 videos. And I just really like that. And so I just wanted to be known to be able to do that. And my thought into why I never really made it about me was simply because I can't tell you if Facebook's going to shut down tomorrow. I can't tell you if YouTube's going to shut down tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what happens when I lose that platform? What skills have I learned while I was doing all this that can be applied elsewhere? Like, if YouTube was to shut down tomorrow, would I freak out? No, because I know I've learned certain skills that I can apply for other companies. I could go back into corporate and apply what I've done over the last couple of years. So, and this is what I tell all content creators that are coming up. I ask them, what's your skill? What's your value? Like, if you're not in front of the camera, what do you do? Like, when people ask you, and that's why I tell people who tell me like, oh, I'm an influencer, and that's great when you're 20. But when you're 30, what are you? Being an influencer is an adjective. It's basically, it's a function of a job. So what is your job? What is your skill set? And for me, I realized it was producing. It was everything I've been talking about is about producing. It's about taking moving pieces and then producing it into a piece of content. And so that's when I started making the pivot into, okay, if I want to do this properly, I need to hire people who are better than me in editing, in shooting, in cinematography, and lighting, and all these things. So throughout the years, we started as a company of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and over 10 years, we're now like a small, tight-knit group of 15 creatives that all work towards the same goal. And so it's really been cool to put that together. And clients ask me all the time, how do you do a viral video? And people say, oh, you can't really say what goes viral. And I'm telling you right now, I know how to do a viral video. All I have to do is ask Anne to be in one of my videos and talk with me. And, we've been in the house together for the last, I don't know how many months. And she's been in 2 videos. And that's only because I don't want to use my wife in that way. If she happens to be there eating a piece of toast that I cooked, then yeah, the camera's rolling, then sure. But I won't go out of my way to be like, hey, let's do this video so it'll be huge and it'll go viral. It's not me. That's not who I am. And if you look at maybe the 400 something videos we've produced over the last couple of years, Anne's in maybe 10 or 15 of them. And she's only in there when it makes sense. You know what I mean? And so I can really stand on my own 2 feet and say, okay, what I've done today is because of the work ethic that I've applied into it.
That's so good, Erwan, because I love how you really wanted to establish like a separation, between your content and the path that you want to take versus, your wife and your story together, because it would have been so easy to just have her in like 10 videos and people who are fans of hers would just flock to your channel. But I really love how you wanted to make sure that that wasn't the route that you were going to go. And look, honestly, like, yes, your wife is famous, but you are also known for so many amazing things. And people talk about you not being her husband or her baby daddy or her Joa. They talk about you because of the cool videos that you've produced, recipes that you've tweaked and taught. And kudos to you, dude, because that's actually quite difficult as well, especially in like a Philippine setting, right? Because when you're
Yeah.
dating somebody famous, more often than not, you're just roped into their circle. Like we were talking to Nico about that. We were like,
Yeah.
how was it from like your small town in Argentina? I mean, dude, she's your sister, yes, but she's like, Solen is so famous, right?
Mm.
So Nico was only known for a while as Solen's guy. And then
Husband, yeah.
he found a way to bust out of that. And now he's Nico Bolzico, president of Bullied Husbands Club. I mean, people love him for
Well, with
him.
Nico's slightly different because we're complete stark opposites.
Yeah, actually.
And that's probably why we do so well working together in business. And he's an extrovert, so he says yes to absolutely everything. On my side, I learned to say no a long time ago when I say no a lot. And so for me, like in terms of projects with Anne, if you've realized, we never had the first project we had together was a year after we were married.
Mhm.
And we've been together for 11 years. You know what I mean?
Aw.
And before that, so before even getting married, we would very rarely post about each other.
Yeah.
Just because we wanted that separation to be there. You know, I've been on Showtime once,
Did you
twice.
do a dance number? What did you do?
Twice. No, I was just there on the side, but I mean, I've been on. This is her show that she does daily. I've been there to say hi twice in 11 years.
Wow.
Which just goes to show how we've managed to be able to keep things separate.
Yeah.
Well, to know the love story, this is what we want to know. Actually, I'm curious.
It's
too.
what Rico wants to know. Sorry, let me zoom. It's what Rico wants to know.
Shiny Karla.
Go mano to mano. Look at me in the eyes and tell me what you want to know.
Oh, man. How did you guys meet?
We had what we call a drawn out start to things. We had met through mutual friends in Manila. I was working in Russia at the time. So I was working 3 months in Russia, and then I would have vacation for 1 month. So it was 3 months, 24/7 working, and then 1 month completely off. And then so from time to time, I'd take that 1 month off in Europe because it was closer to where I was in Russia. And sometimes I would take 1 month off and do it in the Philippines. And we met through one of those trips. And so for 2 years, we were just basically friends. And then we started really hitting it off, and we called it, like, the first part of our relationship was called, well, I like to dub it the extraordinary correspondence, because it was literally just phone calls, and we would make mixtapes and packages and letters and send them from Russia to the Philippines. And it was really just like having someone you could call all the time, having a pen pal, and which was great. So the quote unquote relationship started really as a friendship that was all about kind of like communication, which is the stalwart of any good relationship, right? And then so after Russia, I was offered a job in Nigeria to take over the country manager position over there. And so I had come from minus 30 degrees Celsius, 6 months a year, and then they wanted to throw me in Nigeria, like really hot place.
Yeah.
And so when they did that, I really, really sat down and thought about it. I'm like, right, what are my options now? I could take jobs in South America, in the States, in Europe, and really had to think through. And then I was like, there's this thing with Anne that's starting. Maybe I should try to give the Philippines a chance. And that's it was one of, not the only, but one of the pivotal reasons of why I moved back to the Philippines. And so, when I was there, I was still half in, half out. Like I'm a very restless person. So once I got there, I started working on my GMATs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this pause in my life as kind of a chance to do my MBA somewhere. So I started, applying to all the biggest MBA schools in the world, trying to get in. And then halfway through the process, I realized, you know what, maybe there's something here. So I decided to take a job in the Philippines, and I worked 2 years corporate in the Philippines before starting my own businesses.
Okay, 2 things, 2 points. First, freaking adorable. Okay, can we take a moment that they literally were pen pals? Can we take a moment for the mix freaking tapes? I cannot wait.
Or mix CDs. Sorry, mix CDs.
It doesn't matter, bro. Okay, that is like the sweetest, most wholesome movie-like Oh my God, I cannot. I'm literally dying from envy. Okay, point number two. Erwan, you said earlier, you and Nico are polar opposites. I mean, you're a very reserved, quiet guy. Some can say you're an introvert in a way, you like your own space, you know. Cut to you having this extraordinary correspondence with the biggest star in the country. I mean,
Superstar, number one
she
in the
she is
country.
Ann Curtis. Like, I freaking love her. I've loved her for years. Like, you don't even have to say her last name. People know who she is. What was that like? Did you have a moment as well where you sat down and you were thinking, okay, if I really start dating her, things are gonna be pretty different, even if you keep it as private as possible. People will know that you are dating her and they will research on you and they will stalk you. I mean, that's just how it goes. It comes with the
That's what you
territory. Did that deter you? Did Anne talk to you about that? I mean, could you share maybe just a little bit of that process? Because you're an introvert private guy that did corporate, you worked abroad. I mean, you were doing your own thing, and then you just so happened to be dating Anne Curtis. Like,
Yeah,
dude.
it was strange. It was I guess it didn't take effect immediately because I was abroad.
Uh-huh.
And so I really didn't see that impact. I didn't see her what she did on TV, and I didn't go around with her in the Philippines to understand what that impact was. We were dating, I think, just when Showtime started. So she was big. She'd done movies, she'd done series, she was known. But Showtime really took it to a whole different level. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what was good is I was able to see that. I was able to see that mania. So it wasn't kind of like a boom in your face. She's massive. Like, she was already big, but then from then till now, she's only gotten bigger. And so I managed to kind of see that ride and be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at least in the beginning, I did find it strange when we were eating out. People were asking for pictures with her. What really hit me was when I started being branded as Erwan Heussaff, the model, and I'm just like, how did like, I've never modeled in my life. How am I being brand? Like, I've nothing against models. Like, it's a great job if you're good at it. I'm not good at it, and so I didn't understand that, and I was like, I went to a good school. I've done a couple of jobs. Why are they calling me a model? Like, I have a job, another job. And I guess, that for me was kind of like the funny thing. And in the beginning, really being Solen's brother and Anne's boyfriend. That was a strange part for me. And I think that's what that's what gave me that resolve to kind of buckle in and just try to get my name out of there and try to and solidify who I was, which was very difficult in the beginning because everything that I did or anything that I had success in, all of a sudden people would say, "Oh, it's because of
Yeah.
Anne or because of Solen." And I'm not going to deny that there isn't some part of that probably is true in terms of, I mean, can you tell me where in your life things started going good or started going wrong? No, because it is a confluence of multiple things that come together, right? And so, but a lot of people were putting maybe 100% of the reason behind a certain success was because I was attached to her. And so that for me was a little different to tackle because, I come from a very hardworking family. My dad's a very, manual, a man's man when it comes to hard work and handshakes and
Blue
stuff like
collar
that.
guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how I was brought up. So that was very difficult for me. But then, like I said, it was gradual. So I started learning how to deal with it better and better as we came along. And then now, like, I'm completely unfazed. It's strange, but I'm completely unfazed. Like, anyone can say anything. I'll be like, all right, whatever. Cool.
So,
Oh.
when it comes to it, your sister is, of course, the hot superstar, and of course, your wife is the superstar. When it comes to it, before, when you have critics throwing at them, bashing them, how do you feel about it? Do you defend them, or you just be the emotional support at home? How do you guys handle it?
Yeah, it infuri it like when anyone you love gets attacked for reasons that are not true. And I think the strange part about being in the public eye is people don't realize you only see 10% of the people that you follow. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You don't really know a person. And I think for us, that's what's kind of sad. It's being like, when people paint you as something and you know that person so intimately and you're like, that's not what they're about, or they would never have meant it that way. And so, yeah, so that's always a little sad. In the beginning, definitely fight, it was, when you're in your 20s, it's all about fighting, right? One guy looks at you in the club sideways and you're like, oh, I'm going to kick your butt for looking at me. Like, it's the stupidest stuff ever. But then as you get older, you kind of understand things and you try to understand, even if it's negative, where do people come from? And I think this is probably nothing to do with that, but like if 2020 has taught us anything is to really have an understanding in terms of where you sit in terms of the privilege that you have. And I think this year's really painted that picture for a lot of people in terms of don't think that you can understand what someone's going through because you have no idea what their environment or what their disposition is like today. And I think that is a great approach to have in life, is to not jump the gun too quickly and try to understand someone else first. Even if you don't agree with them, try to understand where they're coming from first.
Oh my God, life lessons with Erwan. I cannot. Can you please do a series of just like life and wisdom and all this advice? Because honestly, Erwan, it's so refreshing to hear somebody speak the truth so openly. It is true. It's 2020 is such a privileged check. It's like a dude, don't even try right now, okay? Like you're crying in your like house where there are people outside, you can't even get a job or find food, and you're crying because your internet's slow. I mean, just it's wow. I love him so much. I'm sorry. I really do.
I just hug you. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what Elaine said. She said, "Can I just hug you, please?" Okay, before we get to more, okay, yeah, and we agree. We agree with you, Kim. Can we clone him? Before we get to more of these life-changing little bits from you, Michael wants to know, Erwan, what are you drinking? The red smoothie. What is in it?
There's really good berries in Australia. I'm so lucky. So it's blueberries, protein shake, and some water.
Okay, there. Very simple and healthy.
We know you are a great cook. You love to make a lot of awesome stuff. But what is a daily meal like for you?
Yeah.
You know,
it's the most boring thing ever. And I'm glad you bring that up. I really feel like everything I've been saying, it's about people need to understand their perspectives better of why do you approach a problem in a certain way, or why do you see something in a certain way. Like, and I tell people about with food that it's something, it's so intimate. It's something that you put in your mouth. Right? If you found something on the ground, would you put it in your mouth? No, because it's weird. But you open a bag of chips and you have no idea what's inside, but you put it in your mouth. And it's not about saying chips are bad. It's about understanding why you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's our perspectives and our understanding of food has to change, because food nowadays has become part of the entertainment business. Like people watch, I'm part of that problem. People watch videos online of really good looking food. You watch Netflix documentaries about food. In Korean K-drama, the food is always just so like, oh, it makes you salivate, right? And because of that, when you come home, you expect the same thing. So you want to be entertained by your meals, by the food that you eat. And I tell people, that's fine. If you're someone that's not, you have no health problems, you don't care about that, you don't want to lose weight, you don't want to lose fat and stuff, that's fine. You don't even have to think about this. But for people who are struggling with fat loss, or who are struggling with, internal medical problems because of the lifestyles that they lead, you have to start looking at food as the fuel, but not only the fuel, but the information that it gives your body. What is the food that you're eating doing to you? And I tell people all the time, for me, it's about boring food. I can have a lunch with 2 ingredients on my plate, a tomato and a chicken breast, and that will be my lunch with some salt and pepper. And because I've come to appreciate the flavor of the ingredients, and I don't need to eat something amazing all the time. I think people need to eat amazing things all the time. I think that's a problem, because that's addiction. Like, you need a high each time you eat something. I don't. I just need something that makes me feel happy, full, and makes me feel healthy and light. And And again, like I said, that I'm part of that problem, because when I cook food online, especially when it's like traditional Filipino food, it's food that is just like, it's guttural, almost it's visceral. It's food that you grew up eating that throws you back. It gives you memories. It gives you chills thinking about it. And I make videos about these kinds of dishes, but obviously I don't eat that on a daily basis, but that's what people see. So I try to, from time to time, do videos like I used to way back when, where it's just all about simple, wholesome eating.
Mm.
Erwan, at home, who does the cooking? You or Anne?
And he's terrible.
Oh my God.
I love her, but I'm not going to mince words. She's cooked for me twice, and it was A for effort.
Oh my God. I love how you literally just said, listen, Anne is terrible. She's so many other amazing things, but a good cook is not one of them. It's okay, because at the end of the day, God is fair. That's
If
how I'm
there's
going
one
to put
thing,
it.
yeah, that's my one thing. I'll take that, and then she can have everything else.
Oh, there. See, there you go. Okay, now since we're talking about, food as fuel and the information that it gives, let's go to the Rebel app, because this is what I think is so interesting. You're coming from a really good place. You know what it's like to have an unhealthy relationship with food, to have struggled with body dysmorphia, Erwan, and the struggles that people might not necessarily know they even have. Right. So with the Rebel app, with your recipes for this, how did that start? Like, how did that go about? What made you decide that this is another venture that you want to pursue?
Yeah, so when we were creating Rebel, we wanted to really try to bring value into the lives of the Filipinos, and we knew that video was a form that was probably the quickest way to communicate things with people. And I've been doing video for such a long time, so I understood that it was a really strong medium. The problem with video is that you're usually competing versus other channels, other platforms, other streaming networks or whatnot. So it's really tough to vie for people's attention. And that's why we put everything in one app, because it really focuses people who are interested in leading a healthy and more balanced life to be in a safe place on your phone, where you have all the information, all the videos that you might need to help you in your journey. And so we've had all the workout videos, and we've had over 100,000 downloads already, and daily users come in and do the workout videos. And we thought, this for me is really full circle, because this is where I started. We needed to tell people it's not about doing 100 burpees. It's about doing 50 burpees and eating something right. It's all about balance, right? And the approach to the overhaul that you want to happen in your life. And so the recipes we have in Rebel, and actually launches today. I think it launches like literally, is it 12 almost in the Philippines?
Yeah, 5 minutes to 12. Woo!
Oh, there you go. It's officially launching in 5 minutes. And all the recipe videos that we have in there, right now we have 100, and we're continuously shooting more with my company back home. It's all really simple recipes, but more importantly, it's for the Filipino, and it's made in the Philippines. And for me, that's so important, because I see people struggle all the time when you pick up a recipe book and you see ingredients that you don't have. Right away, it turns you off. You're just like, I'm not going to make this. Like, why would I make this? I don't want to have to think of a substitute for this. You know what I mean? So we made sure that everything that we put in there is locally available and it's easy to find. As much as possible, we try to work with local produce, but then obviously if some people like salmon, then we'll add a salmon recipe, and we don't have salmon in the Philippines, unfortunately. That's from the Philippines. It's imported. But all the local vegetables and everything are being used. And I think one more thing about Filipino food, we tend to box things into dishes with Filipino cuisine. And you'll see this when you go to the supermarket. You don't have strip loin, top sirloin, bottom sirloin, and et cetera, or rump. You'll have mechado cut, adobo cut,
Pochero.
Pochero.
Sinigang cut. Yeah.
Right. So those are actual dishes, right? So that's what we're calling the meat. So when you think about it, you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy the pochero cut, and the only thing I can make with this is pochero.
Yeah.
And for me, that just boxes in what you can kind of do in the kitchen. And the best example I have is mongo. Like when people think of mongo, they think of mongo guisado, and then mongo sagata with the coconut milk. And those are the kind of like the main quote unquote traditional Filipino recipes, right? but anything you can, every recipe online or in the internet or in books that tell you to use lentils, so you can make lentil salads, soups, etc., you can actually use mongo instead. And so that's why I always tell people it's about really appreciating what we have in the Philippines and learning how to use it properly, because we do have a lot of healthy stuff. We just need
Mm.
to learn how to use it.
And
Amen.
you could see how Erwan is opening up the minds of everyone in culinary as well. But
And
you
I
know,
really appreciate, sorry, can I just, because when we spoke to Nico, he said that when he was thinking about the Rebel app, he really wanted to target, the Filipino talents also, all of the amazing trainers and fitness enthusiasts that are in the country that can help make people feel better about themselves and live a healthier lifestyle. And then you come in with the culinary aspect and you're like, let's find a way to show Filipinos that you can do so much more with the local ingredients that are given. It doesn't need to be imported to be good. It doesn't need to be like a crazy, culinary experience of like gluten-free and all these like
Correct.
words that some Filipinos are like, where
What's
am I
that?
going to find that, right? That must be expensive. I'm turned off already.
Yeah.
I just want to commend you guys because that's such a special way of going about fitness, especially right now where we need to make sure our health is in tip-top shape. And I think that's what makes the Rebel app also very convenient, Erwan. And I just wanted to flash this because this is so cool. James said that you're a hero. From 100 kg, he's now down to 87 in
Good
3
job,
months.
James.
So thank you to Fat Kid Inside.
Awesome work.
When you see messages like that, does it still like make you killing, as they say, or have you gotten used to it? Are you like,
No.
yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you read the blog and you watch the episode, you're welcome. Does it
So
still hit home?
Yeah, we used to do a lot of features of before and afters of people that kind of just, and I never gave people diet plans, right? I just try to teach people what my experience was so that they can somehow figure out how to fit in their lifestyles and in their environment. And we had a team meeting last week for Rebel, and I remember telling everyone, I'm like, this is not a company where, we run production companies and we do ad campaigns for other brands and stuff. And I told everyone, I was like, this is the opportunity today to really be able to change people's lives. And in the Philippines, lifestyle diseases are some of the leading causes of death, I think. And those are things that you can get because of the environment that you put yourself in and because of the decisions you make with things like nutrition or working out or not working out. And so I tell people all the time, you will never be able to prove that you're able to change someone's life or save someone's life or help someone. But when I see messages like that, that's the only proof I'll ever get of people taking to heart what's being said and making those changes in their lives. And I always tell people, and I'm sure you guys too, we all had that one classmate in school that was just better at math than all of us. You know what I mean?
I love that it's math.
Yeah, or math, or that person that could speak 3 languages like it was nothing. And that's because we're all born 100% different, right?
Mhm.
So, and that applies to absolutely everything that we do. So it's very hard for us to give you a book that says this is how to be healthy and this is what exactly you need to eat, because it doesn't apply to everyone. And so I always tell people the number one thing when it comes to weight loss or fat loss or just becoming healthier, it's not about following a certain diet. It's not about working out every day. It's first understanding yourself, your body, your mind, how you attack things. Once you have a better understanding of who you are and you accept your failures and what doesn't really work well for you, then slowly you'll be able to build a plan with the right nutrition or with the right workouts to get where you want to be. But it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that it's tiny decisions today that unfortunately you'll only reap their benefits in 6 months from now. So you need that foresight. You need to be able to think long term. And if you apply that in every aspect of your life, I promise you'll be successful, not only in weight loss or in changing your life, but in anything you want to achieve. You need to put in the work every day.
We're putting in the work on the ab department, Erwan. Nico's ab workout is tough. I'm telling you, he does a little cross.
Rico,
Little
abs
scissors.
are also made in the kitchen, okay? So you can't be stuffing
Yeah,
your face with all the donuts and then do 100 crunches and expect to
There
get
you
an
go.
8-pack.
You know,
Okay.
it's official. The app is out. You know what I mean? Apple Eats, of course, you could download it And it's something really, really cool that you'll get to learn a thing or two about the kitchen as well. I'm going to learn your recipes, man. But just a quick question before
Please
we get to
do.
the follow-up questions as well. Culinary wise, did you take classes or is this all just experience?
It's experience. So I remember I talked about doing odd jobs before, so everything from dishwashing to fixing air cons to doing all
Oh,
that, and I did all of that in either hotels or restaurants. And so I just found my way in the kitchen all the time, not to work, but to befriend the people that were there, and I just learned on their time off. I learned between shifts in terms of how to cook and make drinks and cocktails, and I just really got into it. And then I just read. That's why I always tell people, I mean, you don't come out of school smart. You come out of school being able to teach yourself. And so I'm all for continuing education.
yes.
Hey, nice.
Okay, quickly before we go, because he has dad duties, Rico, and he's also running several companies. So we could, talk to him forever, but he's a very busy man. Fun questions. Guilty pleasure food, Erwan. It is so bad for you, but you're like, listen,
Gotta have it.
I'm going to treat myself today and have this.
It's not a food. It's literally a bottle of red wine.
Why? They say red wine is good for you.
Yeah,
say,
like 2 glasses a week, not a bottle
oh,
a day.
man.
If I could do a bottle a day, I would. Like I think it's in my French blood. My dad would have been so sad if I ended up not liking red wine.
Honey, I've been doing a bottle a day since this pandemic started. What are we talking about?
What is it something that people love and you don't like to eat?
Yeah, like you don't get it.
Zucchini. I hate zucchini. I don't know why. I think I once ate zucchini and then I threw up right after. And that each time I think of zucchini, I taste vomit in my throat. It's not very pleasant.
Oh, you're traumatized.
Same with okra as well with you?
No, I love okra. I love okra, ampalaya, all those Filipino vegetables.
Those are really good. Those are really good vegetables. Okay, food combination that might be strange but works. Like especially for you.
So there's a dish called the butter chicken, which I love. It's an Indian curry. Not the butter chicken you see in Filipino stalls, which is usually just deep fried chicken with tossed in butter. But the original butter chicken is a curry. And I once made that with pasta, and I thought it was really good. And I was so proud of it. And I gave it to Anne. She took one bite, and she said, "This is the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten." So goes to show, taste is personal.
Yeah, and food is very personal and subjective as well.
What's that one thing you can't live without?
In the kitchen, yeah.
I'm gonna say wine again. No, I'm kidding. In the kitchen while cooking, butter.
Mm. It's like he wants us to love him, okay? I stand a man who wants a bottle of wine a day and has butter in his kitchen. Like, I can't. And
I could put butter on anything. It's so
not
good.
at all. That's true. Butter makes the world better, right? That's why it's so close to the word better. Because
Correct.
it's the best thing in the world. I mean, I have nothing else to say. I wish we could have him for longer. Rico,
I have one more question.
I'm in
Go
love.
for it.
Erwan, is that a nail cutter you're holding?
Everyone's been asking.
It is. It actually is. I don't know why.
Why have you been holding it this whole time? People are asking.
I tend to hold things when I talk, and so I literally have a phone, my eyeglasses, and the nail cutter was for some reason right in front of me.
Oh, well, there
I like
you
to
go.
fidget.
There you
Yeah.
go, guys.
Well,
To all the
thank you.
people who are asking.
Erwan, thank you for sharing us your time, from
Yeah.
home. Thank you for sharing us, stories and inspiring us. You have any message for those out there that, moving forward, what's to come for 2021 for you, man, and for the family as well?
I think it's just, it's tough to make plans in such a chaotic time in everyone's life. So I think it comes down to doing your best, appreciating what you have, and trying to be more human. And I think that's one facet of life that we ignore, is to try to remember that we're talking to people on a daily basis, and to be more human, and to appreciate what we have. And in terms of plans, like if you guys really do want to make a difference in your life and make a change, then Rebel is actually 100% free on both Android and iOS. So that's a good place to start. It comes down to, I've on my phone, I have all the meals that I take on a day-to-day basis, because I don't do this normally, but because I've gained like 6 kilos during this time. But it's not about being hard on yourself because of that. It's just now, if you want to start making a change, you can, and you need to be able to track yourself. You need to be able to consciously make the right choice. And I think most people know what to do. They're just putting themselves in their own way. So just get out of your own way, try something different, and hopefully it goes well for you.
Woo! So many wise words.
I have one more question. Sorry.
Go for it.
He has to go.
I know he has to go.
He
Everybody,
has a baby.
I mean, Erwan, everybody got their own version of adobo, right? You know, each family, each mom, everybody got their own version. What is Erwan's version of adobo?
That's such a timely question. I have an adobo video coming out on October 29. October 29, I have an adobo video coming out. And I made 5 different adobos in that video. So the one I like to make the most is a traditional white adobo. So when people say white adobo, people mistakenly think it's a coconut adobo, but the traditional adobo, without calling it white, is supposed to be just vinegar. So I like one with just vinegar, and then right at the end, I add a little bit of chili and some coconut milk. But my favorite is to get a really fatty adobo, and then the next day turn it into adobo flakes.
Hey,
oh, Lord. And I'm going downstairs for lunch after this. I mean, why you do this, bro? Why?
Thank you. Especially I love the sisig episode that you did. Wherein you traveled all the way in Angeles, and you actually there's a historian. There's a dude the historian who cooked you a legit one, and every time we make it at home, I'm like, this is how it's supposed to be. You put the soup out. So
I think for me, because it's tell me if you need to kick me out. I tend to talk a lot, but I feel like as Filipinos, we need to try to understand our food better because it says so much about our history, and we tend to think what our grandmas taught us. We tend to think that that's the traditional way of making things, and obviously, I love my grandma. But a lot of the times there's a deeper meaning, or there's a certain recipe that you've probably never seen that was actually the original way of doing something. And I don't think it's because we should only be eating authentic and original recipes, but I think it's good to understand the context before we change it up.
Yeah. See how smart he is? It's like he always has to like research and see like what exactly went on before he tackles it. It's just like, okay, bro, we get it. You're amazing. And there's only one of you, and you're married with a beautiful baby. I'm done. 2020 sucks. Just kidding. No, my favorite, before we go, super fangirl, I love when you went back about the taho.
Oh my God.
Do you remember the sago? That was when you came back and you were like, listen, I had a limited amount of time. Yes, it was raw. If I were to do it again, it would be like this. I was like, see, this is a guy I can respect because he literally owned it. He was like, everyone was freaking out about it. First of all, it's gulaman, it's sago. Like, are we really going to start a war over sago, right? But I love that you took it, you owned it, and you were like, fine. Y'all are so angry about it. Let's do it again. Let's do it right. And I just want to say that's such a great way of going about life as well. You know, we stumble, we make mistakes, things don't go our way the first time. We own up to it and we improve. And I think that's something that people can learn as well
just,
from your
just
videos.
A tip, don't do it so publicly. That would be my only tip.
Don't do it on a vlog or
don't do it in the public eye.
Thank you, Erwan.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for taking time to join us. Say what's up to Anne and to the baby as well. Parang close na tayo eh, no?
To Dahlia.
Diba, to Dahlia. And we wish you well. And when all is well, we hope to have you in the studio. Hopefully, we'll set up a kitchen here, have you cook in.
For sure.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
One and only Erwan. Thank you. There you go, Karla. My
He was so awesome. Like, he sounds like a really... Dude, it's like, you know, those people that you just want to hang out with for like 5 hours because you'll learn so much. What a nice guy.
Learning a lot, whether it's cooking, especially for those that are starting out, trying to figure it out. And this is just a quick, let's just say diagram to the Rebel app. Working out between that for the abs. Now, the cooking part I'm excited for because me, myself, trying to learn it. It's tough to cook, Karla, when you got the ingredients. When you're at the grocery and you're trying to figure out what am I going to cook today, You know
Yep.
what I mean?
And
So
I love
getting
how they used uniquely Filipino terms to make
Mhm.
it easier and less intimidating for people to cook because not everybody enjoys it, but we all have to do it. So it's nice to be able to have a place where you won't be intimidated with the list of ingredients or the recipes involved as well. And to have a healthy relationship with both food and your body. I think
Mhm.
that's such a fantastic lesson that Erwan is really, driving towards. And it's like food is not the enemy. You are not the enemy. It's all about balance and moderation and feeding your body the right things. So
And it's so cool
what a
that
day.
yung the availability of ingredients, because you know, remember the channel that he had that you were watching, we're like, okay, the ingredients he's using, di ba, we were going into the show, medyo mahal, saan kaya to?
Yeah.
They made it more of, and I understand when you go to the grocery, you see the pochero cut, the sinigang cut.
Yep.
Yun pala yun. So it's stepping out of that comfort zone. So thank you guys very much for those that are watching us and listening to us as well via RX931. Thank you guys for taking time to do so. But more of the hits on the radio, but online we continue. Here we go. That's just on air. She is Carla Aguas.
He's Rico Robles Live.